live. I believe it says my stream validation is in progress, but you never know. I think we're actually live because I see us on air. So I'm talking today to my friend Alison Richards, and she is quite far away. What did you say? 22-hour flight. So do you want to tell me where you are in general, Alison?
Okay, right now where I'm at is I'm in the southeast region of Peru. I'm close to both Brazil and Bolivia in the Amazon jungle. And I'm in a little town called Puerto Maldonado that actually where I've been staying for the last 5 months is 1 hour up the Madre de Dios River. And the Madre de Dios is Spanish for Mother of God. It's a big river. And I take a boat 1 hour up the river, and we've got a little jungle hideout there that's beautiful, and I hang out with birds and animals and monkeys and eat papaya and bananas all day long. It's like a little jungle paradise. So it's been really nice. The biggest challenge for me...
You've had some challenges health-wise, too. I saw the pictures of the weight that you lost.
I got dengue fever, but I got dengue fever in Brazil. I had to do a border run. I had to leave Peru because my visa ran out, and I had to go across into Brazil for a week. And when I went into Brazil, I got dengue fever.
Wow.
And it's nasty. It's like headache, flu, body pain, fever. And for a month, I was in pretty serious shape. And I lost 5 kilos, which is a lot. It's a lot of weight for a person my size. So it's about 14 pounds.
It's crazy.
So I lost that in 3 weeks' time. So yeah, just sweated it out. And all I could do for several days was just drink coconut water. It was a pretty scary experience, but I survived. I got a good shaman. I met a local medicine man came to take care of me, and that was a great experience. So it's been really interesting. I'm learning about plant medicine here. I'm learning about basically the forest here in Peru. The biodiversity in Peru is intense. It's one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. And they also have the most eco-climates and eco-environments of any other country in the world. So here there's, so many different kinds of wasps and ants and birds and plants. And I've been studying the plants in the jungle. And a lot of them is basically where the pharmaceutical companies, they come down here, they take a plant that's good for cancer or diabetes or whatever, and they study it, and then they synthesize it, and they make the drugs for the Western world. But all that medicine is based on the plants that come out of the jungle here in the Amazon.
Which is pretty refreshing, actually. The fact that they're actually studying.
Yeah, like today I actually went to the market. There's a little local market, and I got ungo de gato, which is cat's claw. And because I've got a bit of a rash that's left over from the dengue fever. I've had it for the last month. It's sort of lingering. And the shaman told me that if I drink a tea from the ungo de gato, the cat's claw, that will help take that away. So, I haven't had any traditional medicine since I've been here. So it's been interesting. I went to the hospital and got blood tests, and they lost my blood work. I waited a month for the results, and they lost it. So I'm like, well, I'm going to stick with my shaman because he seems to be taking care of me better than the hospital was.
Yeah, I think you're better to do that. I was just going to say the shaman sounds like you're in good hands with he or she or him or her.
Oh, he's basically got 35 years of experience, but his whole upbringing, he was brought up in that type of in a healing family. Mm-hmm. And so, he knows all the different plants and what they do, and you mix this plant with this plant, and you boil it, and you add this, and it's like a recipe. And this is basically where the pharmaceutical companies that's where they get their ideas from, and that's where they get the medicines from. Mm-hmm. Only instead of making it from the natural plants, they're making synthetic versions. So, or they're, copying it somehow. But, so that's been really cool. The biggest challenge that I've had is keeping up to date on current affairs. Mm-hmm. Like, I only get into town one day a week, or sometimes only for a couple of hours. Sometimes I stay overnight. But then I'm scrambling to read all the news, read all my emails, get current on everything. And it's just been an explosive week, this whole week, with Uranium One.
You know about the Uranium
Well,
One
I mean,
situation, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I've been following, like, I'm always following George Webb and a couple of other journalists, and I my Twitter actually is pretty good because I'm getting, I'm always getting highlights on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But I came down. I was in Peru originally 2 years ago, working on a documentary, and I did 4 months of filming here. And when I got home to Vancouver, I found that all I had was a lot of problems. I was showing all the problems. I had all these interviews with all these people telling me what all the problems were, and that's what I was trying to find, was what are the problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized it would have been a very boring film for people to watch because it was just problem, 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 problem. It's depressing. Now what I'm focusing on is solutions. Who's down here doing something good? I'm interviewing people that are doing regeneration of the forest from where it's been contaminated from the mining or deforestation, working with people that are looking at sustainable farming practices, working with different companies that are looking at ecotourism as an alternative. But the biggest problem in Peru right now is gold mining. It's just devastating the Amazon, and it's heartbreaking because it's a magical place that's full of all kinds of species and plants and animals and insects that we need to preserve. And it's important that people are aware of the fact that the Amazon is really being damaged very badly right now. So that's what my focus is right now, is not just the problems, but what do we need to do about it, and how can we work to heal this area? How can we re-educate the locals? The people, it's complicated. The mining issue is very, very complicated because it's a way that people can make a good living. So you can't tell them, well, you can't do this. Stop polluting the river with mercury and cyanide. Stop putting arsenic in the water, because they don't have anything else to do. Their farms have been destroyed, or they can't fish anymore, and they've got to feed their families. So I'm working with a group of people that were put together through my organization, Stop Reset Go, and my partner in South Africa. And we've got a group of people now that are kind of it's like a think tank, chemists and scientists and engineers, and we're looking at people. We're not going to be able to stop people from mining, but maybe what we can do is we can come up with an alternative that's not quite so damaging. So right now, what they do is they use mercury and cyanide to extract the gold from the river and from the mud and the debris.
Wow.
And if we can find a method that's not so damaging, see, the mercury causes developmental problem in children, and just a whole host of, it's a toxic substance, as is cyanide and arsenic. So
yeah, I would say you've got a real triumbra of toxins right there. It's pretty amazing. Mercury, cyanide,
yeah,
and what else? Mercury, cyanide,
arsenic.
and arsenic. Oh,
yeah, those are the three common things that they use. And the mercury is the number one thing, because it gets into the fish, and people here eat the fish. So I spoke with a girl about a month ago from Duke University in the United States, and she's here studying children 5 and under that are developmentally damaged because of the mercury, because they're eating the fish and they're eating the food that's contaminated. It doesn't affect adults as much. So, and the problem is also the people here, they're not well educated, and they don't even understand that they're causing the problem for themselves. I talked to this one man, he's been a miner for 35 years, and he firmly believes that there's nothing wrong with mining, because if there was something wrong with it, the government would stop them from doing it. He thinks that he believes that if it's hurting them, then the government would stop them. The government wouldn't allow them to do that. But what he doesn't realize is his government is completely corrupt. They don't care that people are dying or that children are developmentally challenged. That's not their concern. Their concern is dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a really complicated problem. At first I was like, we've got to shut this all down. We've got to shut this all down. And I realized it's not going to shut down for several reasons. One, because people keep buying gold. And that's our responsibility as consumers. We've got to stop buying gold. We've got to stop hoarding gold. We've got to stop, being participants in that. The same way we've got to stop buying new electronics and new telephones and those kinds of things. because the precious metals that go into these electronics and things are coming from areas where it's really sensitive areas, and it's not sustainable.
That's so funny because I was
it's
just talking to somebody about buying gold. They said, "Oh yeah, always buy gold as far as an investment's concerned." So you've got these messages coming both ways. I mean, it's kind of interesting to hear you say that.
Because our currency is not a stable currency. The banks are controlled. It's not stable. People know that. Our economy is not stable. We've got an economy that's based on currency. And gold is a commodity that's an alternative. But the problem is people are hoarding gold, and there's just stockpiles of it. So what's the point? There's big stockpiles of gold. But meanwhile, every time you buy gold, I can guarantee you somebody's going to die. If you buy an ounce of gold, at least one person's dead. That's the equation. That's the equation. So, I interviewed this girl from the University of Lima, and she was a sustainable engineering student. She's an engineer, but they have a special study program at the University of Lima, which is the capital city in Peru, and that program is geared towards sustainable solutions. And they're trying to change their engineering program to be more sustainable. And now she's graduated now. Now she's got a job working at the university, and her job is to make the university more sustainable. So, they don't recycle here. People don't understand about plastic bottles. When I go to the market, I bring a reusable bag, like a nylon mesh bag with me. And everybody at the market puts everything, it's like a plastic bag inside a plastic bag inside a plastic bag. But they're 10 or 15 years behind North America. We've already figured out plastic is bad. They don't know that yet. They think, oh, this is great. This is really convenient. So they're going backwards. And they don't have recycling programs here. All the garbage is just in a big heap, and it doesn't get treated. A lot of people burn the garbage. So there's just the infrastructure here from the government is it's a developing nation. What they do have though is it's an incredibly resource-rich country, and this is where the problems are happening is because every corporation is coming in here and just rape and pillaging. They're coming in and just they're taking the gas, they're taking the oil, they're taking the copper, they're taking the gold, they're taking, all these resources. And companies like Monsanto are coming in, and they're turning sustainable, small, artisanal farms where people have been using these same practices for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they're telling these farmers who have great sustainable practices, oh no, now you have to plant this is the better way, and you're going to make more money. And people are destroying their farms and planting monoculture, all corn. And it's all because they don't have, they trust what people are telling them. They don't have the education to question things.
But they've taken the worst of North America, and they've, taken it down there. Clearly, they've learned about plastic and all the various things that they're talking about there. So they've taken all that and haven't learned the other side of the equation, which is, we just figured out that that's not that great.
Right, because these corporations still want to sell their plastic. They still, they're making plastic. They want to make money off of it. Well, let's promote plastic in Peru.
Because
people in Peru don't know yet the plastic.
Down.
Yeah, and the same thing is companies like Monsanto saying there's, how many different types of corn are here? There's over 1,000 different types of corn. There's 4,000 types of potatoes in Peru. 4,000 types of potatoes. It's incredible. The biodiversity here is unbelievable. Look what we have in North America. We've got 3 or 4 different kinds of potatoes, right? And so what they're doing is they're taking the same things that ruined North America. Now they're pushing that down here. And, originally I was investigating Frank Guistra, who's a Vancouver billionaire mining mogul. I know he's been crooked for a long time because I got insider information in 1987 for Goldcorp Corporation, one of his companies. And he's basically been working with the Clintons, and they've got a program going down here that's criminal. and basically this program, it's on the Clinton Foundation website, so you can look it up. But it's a program to teach the women up in the Highlands how to be salesmen and sell products door to door. Mm-hmm. And so these are women who have no money because money isn't part of the culture. So they have no money. And at the beginning, they're like recruited into these sales positions, and the first thing that happens is they're given a cell phone. But they don't have money to buy the cell phone, so immediately they're in a position where they start a new job and they're in debt because they're going to have to pay for their cell phone down the line, right? Mm-hmm. Then the products that they're selling are not even Peruvian products. They're imported products from other countries, like a hand crank flashlight from China. Why aren't they selling Peruvian products that can stimulate the economy here? Mm-hmm. But they're selling products that another company is going to make money off of. And the worst thing is they're training these women that they shouldn't be breastfeeding their babies. They should be feeding them Nestle baby formula.
Wow.
So you have women, you have women with no money selling baby formula that they don't need to women with no money. I mean, it's criminal. And this is what the Clinton Foundation is doing. Who's benefiting? Who's benefiting? Nestle's benefiting. Nestle's benefiting. That's who's benefiting. Yeah. They're getting a stronghold on the company, because these women, if somebody tells them, this is better for your baby, these people here, they want to do what's best for their baby. They think that that's better for their baby. If somebody from North America comes here, they think, wow, this is an authority. And these people, the women up in the Highlands, they respect North Americans. They think that we're really well educated and we have all the answers. And they think that they're adopting these great ways, but they're basically taking all the worst parts of North America and pushing them on a culture that doesn't need these things. Mm-hmm. It's really heartbreaking. So so I want to expose some of these things, and I've been following the news on Hillary Clinton lately, and this Clinton Foundation, I just can't even believe that they haven't been shut down yet, that their assets haven't been frozen, that company is still operating is just beyond me. Mm-hmm. Because they're certainly not a 501c3 nonprofit in my eyes. I don't even understand.
And very many others. I mean, I was talking to Charles Hertel, and he was, what he's discovered is mind-boggling. So you have the link to the, you're the feet on the ground in a lot of ways, because you're witnessing the raping and pillaging of the land that Hillary seems not to mind about. She seems to be happy to line her own pockets with anything she can, really.
Yeah. And here the people are so beautiful. The children are so beautiful. They're so kind. They're so generous. They're so trusting. This is a nation of very loving people. Mm-hmm. Everything is about family and about the children. And, companies like Coca-Cola come here and they promote Coca-Cola and people feed it to their children because they think it's a good product. Mm-hmm. They don't have the education and the nutrition, the training to realize this is not good for the children. The children here all have rotten teeth, like all the children have rotten teeth. It's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, you bring in the dentists, bring in all the other people who can exploit the situation. So now, do you think that it's because North Americans are becoming, I guess, for lack of a better word, their eyes are being opened to what's happening around them, and they're just going to the third world countries to exploit what they can?
Yeah. I think part of it is that I think that they've saturated the markets where they are, and they're just expanding into new areas. Mm-hmm. If they can sell baby formula in Peru, then that's just another market for them. But there's no need for it here. There's absolutely no need for the baby formula here. All the women nurse babies, no problem. That is sad. I never heard about a problem nursing a baby until I was in Canada. It's a North American problem. It's a North American fallacy. But these women here, and they nurse their children until they're 3 or 4 years old, because that's the best nutrition that those children can get, the absolute best nutrition. But the problem is that the lands are contaminated. So this is the other thing too. What are they supposed to mix the baby formula with? Contaminated water. It's crazy. So, for me, I'm trying to find people that are doing good things. And I want to show that, yes, there's a lot of problems here, and foreign corporations are coming in and exploiting the situation, and the indigenous are being pushed off their lands. And, recently, some illegal tree poachers, because some of the trees here are worth several $1,000s each. Like, the trees are amazing. And they have these trees called ironwood, which is a very hard wood. It's very dense. And that wood usually gets sent to China, where it's made into furniture and carvings and all kinds of things. Yeah. But people here go onto property and they poach the trees. And these guys went into an area where there was uncontacted tribe. This happened about a month ago. And there's regions where they say, do not go in this region. There's uncontacted tribe in this region. They carry bows and arrows. Like, don't go here. And these guys went into that area, and one of the uncontacted tribes shot an arrow at them, and they shot 5 or 6 of them. It's just for like a tree. This is something.
And ironwood, I remember in the 70s, ironwood was considered to be a protected species, I think, in Honduras or wherever they were falling those trees then, because they're really ancient trees, and there's only so many of them. I mean, that's a wacky thing to be doing in the first place.
Sometimes on our property, like I'll wake up and I'll hear a chainsaw. And we run into the forest after that sound, because these people, they go in with a chainsaw. They go into anybody's property, and they find a tree that's reasonably close to the river. They'll cut it down and they'll drag it to the river and float it home. The thing with the ironwood is it doesn't float. With those trees, they cut them up. They build like a little mini like lumber yard right in the forest, and they cut it up into chunks and pieces right there. And a person will cut down an entire tree just to take a slab of wood. That's the part that's really hard to take.
It's absolutely criminal. I can't understand it. I'm going to try and put a picture on the screen.
They do it
here.
for the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do it for the money. I mean, that's basically what it's about. Is, like, you've got people who have limited education, a government that has a very poor infrastructure. They don't have regulatory bodies. They don't have enough policemen and enough military and enough. They can't, like, the big mining corporations that are here, nobody's watching them to make sure that they're following the regulations. Nobody's watching them to make sure that they're not polluting the water, because they don't have the manpower. They don't have the facilities to do so. So these big corporations come in here and they just, do whatever they want. And then they kind of laugh, and after the fact, they might get fined. Well, if they've made $1 billion and they have to pay a $500,000 fine, no big deal. Who cares? They've made the profit. The I spoke with Ministry of Ambient, the Ministry of Environment, and basically I said, why aren't you going after these corporations? And they're making big money. Why don't you fine them? They're like, oh, we fine them, but the fines are so insignificant. It's not comparable to the crime, and the companies don't care because they'd rather pay a small fine. It's like a little slap on the wrist. It's like nothing to them. It's like a $10 parking ticket. They're going to park their car there because it's a great spot. They don't care if they're going to get a $10 ticket. And that's how it's relative. And the government here doesn't understand. Like, they don't understand that those fines should be like $1 million fine or a $10 million fine or a $50 million fine, not like a $500,000 fine. Mm-hmm. So, part of it is a re-education of the government. Not even a re-education, because they're not educated. Just educating the government. Building a stronger infrastructure here. But yeah, this is one of the most resource-rich countries in the world with the biggest biodiversity. So it's a target, and people are coming here and they're taking advantage of it. Mm-hmm. But what a lot of people need to recognize is Peru produces 40%. The Amazon produces 40% of the world's oxygen. And this region, 1/5 of the world's fresh water. Like, that's significant. You know, people, like, you know, that's, like, people think, oh, if it's Peru, it's far away. What you have to understand is what goes on here affects the entire world. Mm-hmm. That's the oxygen that we're breathing. That's the water that we're going to have. And, you know, if we don't protect it and if we don't start being, you know, more resource-minded, we're going to be in serious trouble before too long. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm trying to sort of, you know, it's hard because I'm getting spread in a lot of different directions because, like I said, there's a lot of problems here. But right now I'm really just trying to focus on what are the solutions? Mm-hmm. Who's doing good things here? And, you know, talking with grad students, a lot of people come from all over the world to do research here because this is like a great big giant petri dish. It's the best place to, you know, you want to study plants, come to Peru because there's more species of plants here than any other place in the world. You want to study insects, come to Peru. There's more insects here than any other place in the world. So, you know, people come here for those reasons. And that's part of the industry here is a lot of people come here to do postgraduate work. Mm-hmm. But what we need is we need more protections, and North Americans need to be more aware. So, and yeah, the other thing is I started writing some children's stories because I've got 3 kids and 10 grandkids, and I'm always making material for adults that's at a very complex level. And I thought, you know, I want to make a story so that children in North America can understand what's happening here. And not like a wishy-washy bedtime story, but a story that's got some meat and some potatoes to it. So I'm dealing with some of the issues that are here from the perspective of an 8-year-old boy named Hector. And I created this little character, and so that's been really fun. That's something that I can work on when I'm in the jungle when I have no internet, and I mean, you know, that's been fun for me. That's sort of my fun project as a children's story.
So what what will your children's story focus on? Is it going to be about all the different resources, or how are you going to approach that?
Well, I've written the first one already, and I found a local girl here who's an artist, and she's doing the illustrations for me. I did a mock-up of the drawings that I wanted, but I wanted to have a local person do the artwork because there's a very distinct style here and different colors. And so I found this girl. She had painted a wall in a restaurant, and I asked the owner of the restaurant, do you know this artist? Is this person local? And they said, yeah, her name is Celeste, and they gave me her information. But she doesn't speak English, so I had to translate the story into Spanish so she knew what the story was so that she could do the pictures. And so the first story, the stories are from the perspective of an 8-year-old boy named Hector, and he lives with his family in the jungle. Except when he goes to school, he lives with his grandmother in town because there's no school in the jungle. There's nowhere to get to school. So during the school week, he lives with his grandmother in the city, and his parents have a farm, and they grow bananas and papayas and various fruits. And his father also fishes, which is a very typical family scenario. It's a very typical way of living in this region. But the very first story is Hector, every Saturday they go to town and they get their supplies for the week. They get their rice and oil and fuel for the boat and for the generator and things like that. And he goes to the market with his mother and they're buying rice. Well, when you go to the market here, there's 5 different kinds of rice. And they range from 2 soles 80, which is like 3 soles and $1. So it's about $1 a kilo. To $3.50, 3 soles 50 a kilo, which is quite a bit more expensive. Mm-hmm. And the cheap rice is called Tambopata rice, and it's from up the Tambopata River from here, but it's contaminated rice. Mm-hmm. So it's the cheap rice. And the rice that I buy is the most expensive rice because I know it's a good rice, and it's come from somewhere else. So this kid is with his mother, and she's buying the expensive rice. He's like, Mom, why are you buying the expensive rice? Buy this cheap rice. And she's telling him why. So it's a way to explain the problem to a child.
That's a really good idea.
yeah, so and then he has a friend Fernando, and Fernando's little sister is 5 years old. And this is typically what happens. When she's 5 years old, she starts school. She went to school, but the teacher sent her home and said, you have to keep her at home for one more year because she's developmentally behind. Mm-hmm. And this is from the mercury poisoning. So then Hector has a discussion with his mother, and his mother explains, Fernando's sister has some problems with her health, and she can't go to school yet because she doesn't learn as much as the other kids. And it's because she's eating the contaminated rice, because she's eating the contaminated fish. And that's why Fernando's family moved from the where they were to the town that they're in now, because it's a cleaner region. So Hector's learning about these problems, but from a child's point of view. And so it was a cool exercise for me, because I wanted to be able to explain to my own family, to my own grandchildren, what's going on here. And the next story that I'm just actually starting the story. My neighbor, they're like our closest neighbor, is about 1 kilometer away, and I woke up one morning, I heard gunshots, and a guy selling something is coming by in the cart. We might get a lot of noise here in a minute. But anyways, I woke up in the morning and I heard gunshots. And there was 2 or 3 gunshots, and I thought, wow, sorry, it's a salesman going by. Oh. Well, they ride around on like a motorcycle with a cart behind, and they're selling different products, and sometimes they have like a pre-recorded thing. Like sometimes they say, mandarina, 2 soles, 5 soles, whatever, Uh-huh. So it's like a salesman on the road. That's their advertising.
I feel like I'm here.
So that's a salesman going by. But the story is that Hector hears this gunshot and finds out that his neighbor has shot a puma. And the reason he shot the puma was because the puma was coming and killing his chickens. So, which is a problem. You don't want your chickens being killed. And he's got children, and it's dangerous when the puma starts coming too close to the houses. But there's a rescue center very close to me, like maybe 20 minutes by boat farther down the river. And it's called Tarakaya, and it's an animal reserve for animals that have been sick or injured, or for animals that have had to be relocated or that can't be put into the wild again, like a puma that's coming too close to people and things like that. And it's a research station and a study station, but they do really good work. So when Hector goes to school and tells his teacher that this puma's been shot, the teacher takes the class to Tarakaya for the day, and they learn all about the different animals. And so it's a way for me to teach about animal conservation and conservation of plants and things like that, and explain some of the issues here, but from a child's perspective. So I'm taking like the real stories and the real life here, because I think that, the kids in North America would benefit from knowing some of these things. Like the issue of the gold. This kid knows that his friend's father is a gold miner, but that he has to do that because he's got to feed his family. And he's happy for his other friend because his other friend's father drives a tour boat for the tourists, or like one of the boats that goes up the Amazon. And that's an environmentally sustainable job. That's a good job. So it's a way for me to present the issues to children, and to parents, so that just to create a little bit more awareness. So, but I mean, it's hard because it's kind of heartbreaking being here in some circumstances. So, you see things that really just aren't fair. Like what some of the corporations are doing and the conditions that some of the people live in here, and it's really hard. And so I'm trying to just stay positive and do things that I think will bring good results. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm working on. So it's been, and I'm learning Spanish. Yo hablo español. Okay. Poco a poco, todos los días mi español es mejor.
Wow.
So if somebody had told me 2 years ago that I'd be living in Peru speaking Spanish, I would thought they were crazy. But that's where I am and what I'm doing. I live with a guy. He doesn't speak any English, and he's the caretaker and the cook at the lodge where I live. Uh-huh. So if I want to communicate with him, it's got to be in Spanish. So right. It's been really good because I'm learning quite quickly, and it helps because I speak French. But yeah, it's been a great experience. So
So you were
and
living in
yeah, I'm
Montreal.
trying to.
Tell people about that. You were living in Montreal. You lived in Vancouver. You come from the west coast of Canada.
I'm from Victoria. Yeah, I'm from
Hmm.
Victoria. I was born in Victoria, raised on the island, and I've sort of been here, there, and everywhere. When I first got married, I lived in the west coast, and two of my kids were my oldest was born in Victoria, but my other two were born in Calgary. We spent a stint in Calgary during the boom time there when the oil boom was on in the late 70s, early 80s, and then in 2012, I came back to Canada in 2010. I was living in Los Angeles and then Dubai, and I came back for the 2010 Olympics, and ended up staying for a couple of years. But I got really sick because I lived in a house that had black mold, and I had a stroke, and the neurologist told me that in order to exercise my brain and help with my memory and some of my recall and my brain function, that learning a second language would be good. So I moved to Montreal for 3 years, and that's where I learned French. And I did some investigating, and that's where I met George Webb. I spent some time on the road with him doing some investigations, and yeah, it all kind of dovetailed with my own story. I have a history of I lived in Dubai, and I met a man there who was Pakistani, and I got in some trouble with him because he turned out to be not a very good fellow. He was connected with Al Qaeda, and that ended up in kind of a disaster for me. But I survived. Like, I don't know if I'm beginning to think I'm a bit invincible. Nothing can kill me anymore, not even dengue fever. But
Yay!
when I was working on the investigation with George, I told him about my experiences in Dubai and with Al Qaeda, and that the fellow this is the thing that's unbelievable to me. This guy has an international warrant for his arrest. He's a known Al Qaeda operative. He's supposed to be in Pakistan. I was assured he would never be able to leave Pakistan. The British embassy in Kuala Lumpur told me, no problem, you're safe, everything's fine. Atif Ali Khan lives in New York City. New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And
Bizarre.
when I found that out, I was silent for 8 years, and that was when I thought it's time to speak up because there's something crazy going on. And as you know, there's like the Yawan brothers, the whole Pakistani ISI aspiring in Congress. And so it's been kind of like full circle for me. That my incident with Atif Ali Khan was May 2009. So that was 8 years ago, and he's living in New York City now. Mm-hmm. And the irony is I can't enter the United States because I'm on a terrorist watch list because of him. But he lives in New York City, and he's a known Al Qaeda operative.
It's backwards, I tell you. It's a crazy world that we live in.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of, that was one of the reasons why I came to South America, because I felt like there was a lot of heat on me. I was getting weird messages, and I was hacked, and my Twitter was getting taken down, and I was just having all kinds of social media issues and weird messages and fake profiles from LinkedIn trying to hook up with me. And I just thought, you know what, I just need to go somewhere where I feel safe. And I'm in a nice little place in the jungle where the most dangerous thing is a mosquito. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, they can kill you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm trying to just keep moving forward, doing something positive. Mm-hmm. I love the people here so much. It's just, I feel as a Canadian, knowing that Canadian mining companies have done so much damage here, I feel obligated to try and correct that in some way. Mm-hmm. And be a voice for the people down here because they need a voice. They don't have the words to speak for themselves. They don't even realize what's happening to them. They're oblivious to what's going on in their country.
So what we need to
So,
do is cut this off at the source. And I think what's happening, in case you haven't heard, I think there's a lot of stuff raining down right now on the Clinton Foundation, and yeah, things are being exposed for what they are, at least with the DNC and that whole schmoz from last year. This time last year.
The whole Russian thing, Russia. Yeah. I mean, it's
Clinton,
funny. Like, I
Clinton.
just think, like, I just think, wow, like, it's not Russia, it's Pakistan people. The people we need to be worried about is Pakistanis. And I mean, I'm not against Pakistanis. I was engaged to one. I was fully prepared to marry one. Unfortunately, he turned out to be Al Qaeda. It was just not a good choice on my behalf. But we need to be more aware. It's funny because sometimes I'm always, whenever I come to town, I'm checking out bookshelves in the hostels and stuff, because there's like little book exchange shelves. And I just came across the 5 Agreements, which is Don Ruiz Miguel.
Yes.
The original book was 4 Agreements and then Mastery of Love, but now there's a book he wrote with his son in 2010 called The 5 Agreements.
Oh,
and I had read it before, but I thought, I'm going to reread this again. It's a great book. Mm-hmm. And the 5th agreement, the first agreement, let me see if I can remember them. The first agreement is be impeccable with your word. Mm-hmm. Second agreement, don't take anything personally. I should know these all. But anyways, the 5th agreement, which is the one that's not in the original book, is listen, but be skeptical. Mm-hmm. And this is what people need to do right now. People need to listen, but they need to ask questions, and they need to be skeptical. They need to, like when the government says, oh, we got this great program. Really? Is it a great program? How is it great? Who does it benefit? Right? Like, I met a girl who's working for a nonprofit here. She's doing her thesis. Really was a lovely girl. And I talked to her in a coffee shop here. And I started asking her questions about the organization that she's donating like the next 1 year of her life to and writing her thesis on and everything. And she knew nothing about them. I said, well, where does their funding come from? Who are their sponsors? How much do the CEOs get paid? Because it was really funny, because she gave me this very rehearsed little spiel that was like, I felt like she was reading me a brochure. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is, I heard it before 2 months ago from somebody else who was at the same organization. And it's about 50-minute drive outside the little town that I'm in. There's a farm where this guy has this nonprofit. And I won't say the name of it, but because I don't really know what the truth is. But I got, my spidey senses kind of like got a little bit weird, because this guy said to me, yeah, the farmers here, they don't have sustainable methods, so we're teaching them sustainable farming. And I thought, what? The farmers here, that's the one thing that I can say they do have is sustainable methods. They don't use fertilizer and herbicides and pesticides, and they use ancient methods, and they've been doing the same thing for thousands of years. That's what we should all be doing. Well, guess what? They're teaching people how to use pesticides and herbicides and fungicides, and how, to have monoculture so that they can get more volume off of 1 acre of land. And it's not a good program, but this is an NGO that's doing this. So these people think that this is a good program. And this girl thought it was a good program. And I started asking her questions, and she was like, her head was spinning. She didn't know what to say. She was like, I don't know, And I said, well, what makes you think that, she said, oh, the people who run this NGO, it's just new. They've only had it for like a year, but they've both worked at other NGOs. And she named off all these other places that they had worked. And I said, well, they obviously have an idea that NGOs can be profitable. I said, do you know how much they draw on a salary? Is it over $100,000 US? Yes. I said, well, then it's not a charity. They're living in a place where it costs them $5 a day to live, and they're making $100,000. That's a damn good salary, So, I mean, that's what we need to do. We need to listen, but we need to be skeptical.
And I think the third
And
agreement is
question
don't make assumptions. I've got it on the screen here. So it's be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions.
Don't take anything.
Always do your best. Be skeptical, but
Always
learn
do
to
your best.
listen.
Yeah, yeah,
All very
yeah.
good things.
And
I
it's,
think,
I mean,
sorry, go
yeah.
ahead. The
No,
making assumptions
they're
part.
great. They're great.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like I reread the book and it screamed at me. Like when something really speaks to you, this book screamed at me because it was so relevant to where I'm at right now in my little place in this, like, because I'm looking at things as an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are around me, the locals, the natives, the indigenous, they look at me as like a really important person. It's important for me to be impeccable with my word. It's important for me to not take things personally. Like, the culture here is a little bit chauvinistic. And I'm an independent woman. And one of the guys that I live with, an Amazonian man, he doesn't think that I should do certain things that I think I'm perfectly capable of doing. But I have to realize that he's not, like, at first I thought he was picking on me. But then I realized, no, it's just his culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
maybe protecting you, or that's maybe what he sees it as.
Well, he's
he's
a little bit of a macho kind of a guy, and he does say things that are inappropriate and do things that are inappropriate, but it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to take it personally. It's his culture. It's his upbringing. It's his thing, right? And I was like, oh my God, I'm stuck in the jungle with this guy, and he's the only person, and so it's like it was a little bit uncomfortable for me. But as soon as I was reminded of that, don't take things personally, I learned to deal with him in a totally different way. And when he says stupid things to me, I just kind of like walk away thinking like that's the way he thinks, but it's got nothing to do with me. Right. It's not about me.
If only other people could figure this out. It's, the assumptions part.
And always do your best.
Always do your best. Yeah.
Yeah, always do your best. I mean, this is kind of like how I always sort of live my life, right? I'm a person that always gives 110%. Like, I'm very competitive. I want to have, I'm the one who wants to get the A+ on the paper. I want everything I do, I want to be the best at it. So that's not a problem for me. But taking things personally, yeah, that was a problem for me. And I had to be reminded of that. So it was really refreshing to read that book again. And it's a simple book. It's a beautiful book. It's really nice. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and I found somebody that I'm going to pass it on to. So I'm happy to pass it along. So pay it forward. But yeah, I mean, I got a lot more than I bargained for on this trip around. Some challenges with my health and communication challenges and things like that. But at the same time, I feel hopeful. And I feel hopeful about what's going on in North America right now. I mean, it's really hard for me when I've been in other countries and away from North America. I come back, I feel like I'm in like this crazy consumer-driven psycho world that everybody's like, oh, they want to go shopping and they want to buy stuff and they got to save for this, and everybody's just so consumed with money. Mm-hmm. And I don't live with money. I work and I save money up, and then I make a project until that money's gone, and then I work and like my whole system is a little bit different, and I just don't fit into that culture in North America anymore. So, the other thing is I'm sort of like trying to figure out like, where am I going to go next? Because I feel like I want to continue being youthful. And my days are coming to a close here. So I got to start sort of planning my next move. Might be Nicaragua, maybe a little bit closer to home, but still, in a place where I can, maybe do something.
Yeah. So what do you think you're going to do there?
Important.
What's happening in Nicaragua these days?
Well, they have some of the same challenges as here, with, foreign intervention, exploitation of tourists, of the locals and the indigenous. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I chose Peru to begin with, because the problems that the indigenous people have in Peru are exactly the same as the problems that the indigenous people have in Canada, in the United States, in Africa, in Asia, the indigenous people in Mongolia. they all have the same problems. They're all having their land expropriated. They're all having their cultures, their cultures and their traditions stripped from them, and they're being forced to live in a world that doesn't go along with their typical culture. Like in Peru, they didn't use currency. It was a culture of reciprocity and sharing. I'm going to plant corn this week. You're going to help me, and next week I'm going to help you harvest your potatoes.
Oh, we can't have
That's
that.
how people live here. Yeah. So there was no currency here for thousands of years. Now all of a sudden, a big corporation comes in. They put in a hydroelectric power plant up in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, and then they run power to people who've never even had power before. And these people, the first thing they do is they go out and buy a color TV set.
It's
and it's
so crazy.
but then they have to have a job because they got to pay for the power. Because
that's
before
the whole
they
thing.
could live
That's
without
what they've been trying to train North Americans into, or Europeans into, for the last
to become,
millennia. I think it's the old
be
way
reliant.
of gaining power.
Yeah.
Well, it's not only that; it's a form of slavery. It's indenture. And you got to pay your taxes now, and you've got to. So it's a way of the government and the leadership, so-called, taking over the lives of the average person, because you can't have people being agrarian and independent. We need them to be under our control. And it's a typical...
Well, we all need to be good little slaves. Yeah.
That's exactly it. It's a form of slavery. And it's really sad to see that happening just as we're having our eyes opened in some of the areas in North America. We've got people in the rest of the world that are... I mean, these trolls just move along to other areas to start exploiting, whether it's the resources or the human resources, which is even sadder.
Right. Well, this is another problem that I didn't even touch on. Another problem with the mining here is you got all these men that all come to this region, and they're coming from all over Peru. They're coming from Bolivia. They're coming from all over the place. They're coming into this region for the gold. And they all live in camps, and, well, they need to have 13-year-old girls. So these families are sending like 13 or 14-year-old girls to be prostitutes in logging and mining camps. And it's, a girl here in the Amazon, if she's 13 or 14 years old and she hasn't had a baby yet, she's considered slow. It's just really heartbreaking. And, they have no future after that. They're just used. It's really sad. And their parents, put them to work. They put them to work because it's income for the family. So yeah, I mean, that's another heartbreaking scenario here. But again, it boils down to education. And a lot of the children here, they only get like an elementary education. They don't go on to secondary school. They don't go on to high school. They don't go on to university. They basically learn to read and write, and then they go and work in the market, or they because the life here is so simple. They think, what do they need? They don't need anything else. But they don't have any options if they haven't had that education.
Right.
People need to keep their kids home because they need somebody to tend. They need somebody to tend to the livestock. The kid's got to stay home because he's got to move the sheep from one field to the next field, or he's got to stay home to collect the eggs, or he's got to go and work in the market. And like today when I went to the market to pick up vegetables to make lunch, there was like a 13-year-old kid who was so smart. Like I said, I bought, half a kilo of tomatoes and blah, 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 blah. I bought all these different things. And he put them all, he was weighing them out and putting them in the bags. And then he said to me, 18 solely 50. I mean, he had it all added up in his head, and it was bang on accurate, But that's all that kid's ever going to do, because he's not in school.
Yeah. Well,
actually, he's not in school because
today's
Sunday, but he works
places. But then again, the schools, it depends on how the schools are being run too, because sometimes that can be just as detrimental as working out in the fields with parents who are at least teaching them something culturally. Right,
exactly. I was going to say, some of the kids that live in the jungle, they have amazing educations. I mean, what I've learned just in the last 5 months is unbelievable. Like, I know how to treat a snake bite. I know where to get medicine to treat certain things. If somebody gets bit by a spider, I know how to collect a termite nest, take it, burn it, turn the ash into a poultice with water, and like use that to suck the poison out of the wound. I mean, like, the things that I have learned are just unbelievable. And this is like an education that I've picked up from the shaman, from the medicine man here, and from the Amazonian man who runs the lodge that I stay at. The different plants, what you use them for. You have a headache, you boil the leaves of this tree and you get a wet cloth and you put it on your forehead with that liquid and the headache's gone away. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. But the local people, they learn that as their culture, the same way we learn that chicken soup is good for a cold. Mm-hmm. But their education is so much more in depth because they're learning about all the plants and all the bugs and this does this. And like the guy picked up a big termite, and you said if somebody snores, you can take the termite and you kind of manhandle a little bit, and they emit an ammonia, and you just sniff it, and it helps to clear your nasal passages. A termite.
I have people I could use that on. Send me a termite.
Yeah,
these are different termites. Yeah. These are not your average West Coast North American termites. They must be
what's really I mean, like a lot of ants and termites and stuff, they do emit or secrete an odor that's a protective, right? And it's like an ammonia. And it does. Like we were walking through the forest one day, and there was 5 of us, and Alex was at the front with the machete, and I'm at the back with the machete, and there's like tourists in between us. And everybody walked over this log. There was a log in the middle of the path that you had to kind of climb over. Well, that log was full of termites or ants or whatever, some kind of bugs. As each person went over it, the ants emitted a little bit more because they were being more and more stirred up. By the time I went over it, it was like full on, like my eyes were burning, my nose was running. I was like, did you guys not smell this? But everybody else, I was like trailing along behind them a little bit, and by the time I passed, I got like the full whiff. But yeah, I mean, you learn things that I photographed a wasp nest the other day, and I posted the image up on Facebook, and next thing I know, I had this whole like bug study people all like asking me questions like, where was that and what is it, and I came across this wasp that's quite rare, and it's nocturnal, and it's the worst sting of any wasp in South America. If this wasp stings you on the arm, your arm will be paralyzed for several hours, and you'll get like a cold for 2 weeks. That's from a wasp sting. Yeah. And I thought, and what's really funny, when I was taking the picture, I was just using my cell phone. I don't carry my camera when we go walking. I just have my cell phone. I whip it out of my pocket, and I kind of like got up close to this hive, and I thought, I shouldn't get too close because I don't know what these are, but they look dangerous. Mm-hmm. So I just zoomed in using the digital zoom on the camera. So it's not a very good picture. But then I read all these comments from these people telling me how like this will paralyze you if it stings you. I thought, oh my God, it was a good thing I didn't get too close to it. But
you don't
apparently
need anything more. You've had enough.
I don't need it. I don't need anything more, man. Yeah. So I was so excited today. I found coconut milk in the market, and I made a coconut milk curry. I'm trying to fatten myself back up again because I need to put on some pounds. But
I'm sure a lot of people
I'm a little thinner than I.
Very sorry for the funny thing is, if people haven't experienced that kind of illness, they're kind of like, oh yeah, look at how you've lost weight, and you're just thinking, I'm just glad to be alive.
Yeah, like I had full-on hallucinations, fever, chills, headache, body ache. Every joint in my body was so hurting, and it went on for weeks. I was like, when is this going to end? Like, I can't handle it. My whole body was covered in rash that was so itchy. It felt like my skin was on fire. Oh yeah, it was not a pleasant experience. But it was kind of, now that I'm over it, I'm glad that I went through it because it had an impact on me. It showed me some things, and I learned a lot about the medicine system. And yeah, I mean, I'm not happy that I got sick, of course, but it was an experience that the expression "what doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I am stronger. I'm definitely stronger now.
Well, I've
So
been worried about you because I didn't hear from you for a long time, and I know. I check on Facebook as well just to see if you're still there. And for a while, we didn't hear from you, so it was kind of cool to actually get the update. Even though, well, I love the picture of you in the pants that you used to wear anyway. It looks like you had to get a whole new wardrobe.
Yeah.
Well,
luckily those pants have a drawstring on the waist. So, yeah, none of my clothes fit me. It's funny because when I come into town, I stay at a hostel, and I'm like maybe here one night a week or one night every 2 weeks, something like that. Sometimes I come in the afternoon, and I got to pick people up at 7 o'clock in the morning. So, like tomorrow morning, I have to pick people up at the bus. They're coming from Cusco. They're on the night bus, and they're arriving at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I can't get here at 7 o'clock in the morning from where I live, so I've got to come the day before. And I'm like always excited because then I have like 5 or 6 hours of internet time. But today the power's out. I'm like, oh, because we had a big storm last night. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's like, you just when you live in a developing nation, there's just challenges that we're so spoiled. We're so spoiled in North America. And oh yeah, so this place that I stay, they're building a swimming pool, and it's almost finished. And I brought my bathing suit thinking, oh, in case the pool's finished, I can have a swim. And I took it out of my bag, and I just started laughing hysterically. And I was like, this is like a size 12, and I'm like a size 4. It's like, there's no way this is going to fit me. Like, I might as well just swim naked because that's what's going to happen the minute I get in the pool.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
no drawstring.
But the pool's not ready, so we're all safe. We're all safe because the pool's not ready, so don't worry.
Well, hopefully
wipe out
we'll
that
find
image.
you. Anybody that wants to send you a bathing suit, I'm sure you'd be happy for it.
Well, yeah. See, this is the thing is that, yeah, if people want to support my efforts, I could definitely use the money because I live like a poor person. But Peru is cheap, and I live very simply here. I've completely converted to vegetarian because before I won't eat the fish here anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't eat the cheese or the milk, and sometimes I eat eggs, but I'm pretty much plant-based diet, and that's working for me. I've been happy with that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's yeah, and I feel like I'm being responsible in the place where I'm at, but I just don't really know how to package this message up to so that people don't want to hear don't buy gold. Mm-hmm. Like they don't want to hear that.
Well, especially when you've got the message being given to them, which is literally buy gold, don't invest in the stock market, don't do anything rash. Make sure you've got gold. And so I don't know how you unconvince people of that.
Right, like to tell them like when you buy gold, you're actually responsible for somebody dying. People don't want to hear that. So I need to find a way to package that message up in a way that people can relate to it and feel, and that was when I came up with the idea for the children's stories. Because I figure, we've got a whole generation of people that have been brought up on TV dinners and commercials, and this new generation is the generation that maybe is the generation that's going to bring the change. So maybe that's where we need to be focusing our energy, is re-educating our children to not use plastic bags and to not have a car and, things like that. So I'm kind of like looking now at different ways because I feel like I don't want to get into controversial discussions with people about what they can and can't do. Because it's not my place to pass judgment on people and say, don't buy gold. But I don't want people to buy gold, because I know what that does. So, I'm trying to find ways to bring that message in a way that people can hear it.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
So. Well, what we'll do is we'll stay in touch, so that I can find out what you're up to. And of course, I like the context that you can provide for people who may not understand all this stuff, how things are working with the rat lines and that sort of thing. I wouldn't mind getting into that sometime. As far as the Montreal, I wanted to catch up with what you're doing in Peru. And there's so many other things that we could be talking about, because you were with George in Montreal, and I'm curious, maybe you could just give us a little taste of what you were doing when you were there, because he's alluding to that quite a bit now.
Well, what's really interesting is I have a friend who's a courier in Montreal. They have a courier company. And I was just driving with him one day, and he pointed out this. I said, "What is that over there?" He says, "Oh, it's just an army base." And I said, "Well, oh, okay," because it's kind of like in a weird area on the east side of Montreal. And he said that quite often he gets called to take a package. He'll get called to go there to take a package from there to another base that's even farther east. Like, so sometimes he's courier going back and forth in there. And he said the last time he went in there, there was just all these big UN containers. And I said, "Well, what kind of containers?" He goes, "Like all different kind of containers, all different sizes, that they all had like UN on the side of them." I'm like, why is a bunch of UN stuff sitting in a military base in Canada? Like, why would it be there? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. So I kind of, I just kind of shuffled that into like a corner of my brain. And then when George was there, I basically pointed out the same thing to him and told him what my friend had told me. And now it makes sense, because when you, like, I know now how these goods are being moved around. I'm like, that's what they're doing. They're shipping stuff in UN containers. Who's going to question the UN? Mm-hmm. There's nobody going to inspect what's inside those.
Right. It's like a diplomatic pouch, quote unquote. Pouch.
Yeah, it's like a diplomatic pouch. Yeah, exactly. Those are like, that's relief containers that are going somewhere or whatever. So, like George and I visited all of the opiate clinics, the methadone clinics and the opiate clinics, because there's a bunch of them in Ontario. I mean, it's like a whole new, they're popping up all over the place, but it's really big in parts of Ontario. And I actually watched a documentary last night. I download things to my Netflix on my phone, which is nice. Mm-hmm. And there's a great documentary on Netflix called Heroin, like a heroin, like a woman, but heroin like the drug. Mm-hmm. And it's a feature on these three women in Virginia, and one is a judge, and one is the chief of the fire department, and the other one is a paramedic. And it's them dealing with the opiate crisis and all these fentanyl overdoses, and like sometimes 30 in a day. And the judge has got what she's called drug court, and she's trying to rehab these people and get them off of the drugs, because the fentanyl crisis is just massive. And this is something that's near and dear to my own heart, because in 2010, I broke my wrist. Now, I know not to take any opiates, and I know to stay away from certain kinds of drugs because they're highly addictive. I deal with pain through meditation and, if I really have to take like an ibuprofen or something like that, but I don't take anything that's a narcotic, ever. My father had a foot surgery. My stepfather had a foot surgery at the same time. And so I was recovering from a broken wrist, and he had this foot surgery. And I was standing in the kitchen at my son's house, and my dad noticed that I was kind of hanging onto my wrist. He said, "Is your wrist bothering you?" I said, "Yeah, it always does." So I kind of just brushed it off, right? He says, "Just a minute." And he went and got one of his pills. He said, "Here, take one of my pills." I said, "I'm not going to take one of your pills. What is that?" You shouldn't give me your pills. And I looked at it, and I recognized it, Oxycontin. Uh-huh. I recognized it right away. I said, "That's Oxycontin." He's like, "It doesn't matter what it is. Just take it. It works. It's great." My mom, who's a retired nurse, I said, "Mom, you got to go back to the doctor and ask for something else. Don't take this. Get him off of this. This is highly, highly addictive. This is like the worst drug he could be on." Well, my father drinks methadone every day. He is a drug addict, full on. Now, my parents think that he's on full-time pain medication. What they fail to recognize is that it's because he's addicted. Like, they don't, that's not the way they think of somebody who's a drug addict as somebody who's on the street that robs gas stations and, the typical addict that people conjure up in their brain. Not an 80-year-old man. Mm-hmm. And I spoke with a kid here at the hostel who was 18, who was from North Carolina, and he got his wisdom teeth pulled, and his doctor gave him this giant thing of OxyContin, like a 3-month supply. And 2 weeks later, when he went for his checkup to see how the healing was going, the doctor gave him another prescription. And he said, I don't need it. I still have a whole bunch of the pills. I only took them for like 2 days. He goes, oh, well, you better take this just in case. I mean, doctors are peddling drugs that people don't need.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are the kinds of things that are going on in Canada. But it's, like you said, the rat lines. Who's peddling these drugs? Mm-hmm. What's the purpose of these drugs? You've got a rat line, you've got drugs going one way, you've got weapons going the other way. What happened in Las Vegas? Well, the Saudi prince was arrested last night. There was like a bunch of them arrested. That guy owns part of Mandalay Bay. He owns the floors. Yeah, yeah. The guy who was arrested last night is one of the owners of Mandalay Bay. Him and Bill Gates.
I did not know about that. So, see, look at you. You're really up on things, and I'm out of the loop. So,
there's some stories I follow. Well, there was this, I don't know if the arrest took place in the United States or how it all happened, but there was quite a few arrests last night, and one of these big Saudi princes, and they're being arrested for like child pornography and pedophilia, mm-hmm. and it all goes back to Vegas. So the whole Las Vegas thing was like a false flag event. That was like a gun, like how does a guy bring all those weapons into a hotel? Like I can tell you, because I lived in LA for 14 years, and quite often I worked in Los Angeles. I would do like a conference or a convention or a show in LA, working as a camera operator or an audiovisual technician. And whenever I worked in Vegas, I hated it because of the security, because you had to sign in and sign out of everywhere. If you brought stuff in, it was always like, because there's cameras everywhere, they've got optical recognition, that, there's no way that guy brought stuff into that hotel without a whole pile of people knowing about it. Or he had a team of people helping him cover it up. Yeah. If he used the freight elevator, there will be a record of it, because you have to sign a form. And you have to show your driver's license. I mean, I've been in those hotels. I know exactly how it works. I've brought in camera equipment. That guy brought in a bunch of weapons. When people see you carry like more than the typical suitcase, they want to know what's in that bag.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
And especially in Las Vegas, because of the casinos, because of all the money change that's going on there, that is the highest security surveillance, the most intense surveillance systems of anywhere in the world. And there's guys that are sitting in rooms with banks of monitors in front of them. That's all they do is watch those monitors all day long. There's no way that guy moved around without people knowing about it.
Well, just
or without having some kind of...
Yeah, it's just on the face of it, the idea that a guy has all that weaponry in a casino where, the potential for chaos is right there. So, of course, they're going to be watching for guns and drug running and all the rest
of course.
Unless it's on the inside. And clearly
exactly
there is something going on the inside, because the stories change so many times. I mean, and I think people don't understand that a false flag doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have people that actually die in the event, like 9/11,
sure.
Pearl Harbor,
sure,
you name it. Unfortunately, we have this weird idea about crime that, they'll do it right up to a point, but they wouldn't actually kill innocent people. Well, yeah, they will, and they'll do it on the streets of New York as well to cover another crime. They'll do it anywhere.
Right, and if they want to have gun control, they've got to create an event so that people start, like what happens immediately afterwards? All kinds of people petitioning for gun control, and like gun control is going to solve the problem. No, gun control is not going to solve the problem. Getting rid of the government, getting rid of the ruling elite, and what they want to do is they want gun control because they want to take guns away so we can't defend ourselves against them. Right. That's the big plan, people. Yeah. So it's really funny. Having spent a good chunk of time in California, I have a lot of friends that are liberals. because California is, a very progressive state, and all these people think that they're like, they've got all these great ideas, but they're so brainwashed.
Yeah.
They're they have no idea, they think, they're brainwashed to think that Donald Trump is like this horrible person. Well, I don't like Donald Trump. I don't watch reality TV, but I can tell you something right now. That man's getting stuff done. Mm-hmm. When he fired James Comey, that was the best thing in the world for all of us, because James Comey for 20 years has been covering up the crimes of these people. Mm-hmm. Now he's gone. He's not covering up those crimes anymore.
No, now Mueller gets to do it.
Right. It's like, it's the draining of the swamp, unfortunately, is a lot slower than it should be. And there's some new people in the swamp that don't belong there. But there's some progress happening. Like, people are waking up a little bit. And, because of the technologies we have, because of hackers, because of the internet, because of 4chan and the dark web and these different political message boards and stuff, people are starting to get more aware. What's really interesting? I don't know if you saw this, but Google, maybe a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I don't know, it wasn't that long ago, Google published a list of 600 websites. And they said, we will no longer include these websites in search results because these are conspiracy sites. And this is misinformation. Mm-hmm. Right? You know who's on those? You know who was on that 600 websites? WikiLeaks.
Gee, why
George Webb.
Doesn't that surprise me? It's
right, because they don't want people getting real information. And, it's funny because if I were to talk to people in my family, there are people in my family who believe that Julian Assange is a traitor and a criminal and should be shot. Mm-hmm. They believe that because that's the message that they've been sent.
This poor man.
But they don't understand.
He's holed up, and yet if he were actually released, he'd probably be in more peril than he is right now. So I know it's amazing. People around me, you don't know where to start. You're saying, well, first of all, turn off the TV, turn off BBC, because what you're hearing there is total shite. And it's hard because we sound like we're completely nuts. If it's like, don't watch this, don't watch that, come over here. We're the ones that sound like that we're the conspiracy theorists, where in fact we're the realists in just seeing what's actually happening in the world. I had to stop talking to certain people in my family, because we were having violent discussions. They just could not grasp what I was trying to tell them. I have friends and family that think I'm like a complete and total lunatic, but they watch TV 8 hours a day. That's what their life is about. What show's on TV tonight? What's the next show they're going to watch? There's even the whole football thing, the whole praying and kneeling and all that whole football thing. I stopped watching professional sports 15 years ago, because I recognized then that it was all fixed and it was all for showmanship and it was all like this multi-billion-dollar industry designed to sell merchandise and make a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew that a long time ago. To me, I'd rather go and watch 13-year-old boys play baseball because they're having a real game, or young kids playing hockey. But once you get to the professional level, it's there's no sport anymore. No,
it's not sportsmanship.
It's how many people can get into a stadium, and it's really interesting when you see these teams that are failing, and then the next time you see them, they're all of a sudden doing really well, and the stadium's full. And I started to watch just things like that are, you're not noticing when you they won't show you the empty stands anymore and the football games, but it's
right.
Fortunately, people are catching on to it.
Right, the same way they won't show a stadium full of people listening to Trump.
Right.
They try and make it seem like Trump has no supporters. 70% of the people in the United States support that man, but they make it seem like nobody likes him. Right? That's the message that the media sends.
Well,
and it's really interesting because Well, Soros has got big pockets. He's got big pockets. and he's getting old.
It's
He's
all turning against them anyway. I think it's really interesting the way that the Clinton Foundation situation is going. So you got George, you've got Charles Ortel, you've got all these various people that are kind of working on their own. They've been sort of working in obscurity for a couple of years in Charles' case, finding out about the Clinton Foundation. And all of a sudden there's this critical mass, and probably as a result of Hillary herself being so obnoxious, like, just go away already, It's almost like people would have been willing to give her a pass if she'd gone back to the woods. But no.
If she'd just gone peacefully.
Go peacefully.
She's got to bring out a book.
What happened?
What happened?
It's such a great title, and it's going to haunt her for the rest of her life, however long that is. But so she's now hiding out in Canada, and I hear that she's in Quebec as well. I mean, she's given up on her book tour now. And it's called Go to a Place Where You're Not going to have an extradition treaty. I think that's the point now.
Oh yeah, she'll end up in Cyprus or Malta or one of these places, and I mean, it's really hard because I know people who are diehard Hillary fans. They think that she's like this amazing person. They think that Barack Obama was the best president ever. And I mean, I look at evidence that says these people are criminals, and it's really hard because I get it. Nobody wants to believe that their government is bad. The same way the guy that does the mining here, he doesn't want to believe that what he's doing is bad because then he's got to deal with that guilt. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to believe that his government is a bad government because you want to think that the government's there protecting you. Mm-hmm. Some people just prefer to live in that state of oblivion. And, but we can't live like that anymore.
Well, I think all of us would prefer to live that way, which is why people like you who are out there, making your life uncomfortable by, looking into certain things that are not popular or having to deal with family members that are not exactly on the same page. It's not a very comfortable situation, and why would we do it unless there was some sort of revelation that said things aren't as they seem? I guess right.
Well, for me, I'm doing it because I've got 3 kids and 10 grandkids, and I want a future for my family. I want my grandkids to have clean water to drink and fresh air to breathe. There's one more little quick story. I've been investigating different activities here in the town of Puerto Maldonado, like the local government and things like that. And it's one of those things where you're in the right place at the right time. And I was in this restaurant in town, and there was 4 men sitting at the table beside me. I'm like, I'm the white chick in town, right? Mm-hmm. I'm the white woman. And they were all like looking me over. And then the one guy said, "Oh, my friend would like to meet you." Well, my response was, "Does he speak English? Because if he speaks English, he should just come and ask me himself instead of getting somebody else to do it." Mm-hmm. And then they all laughed, right? Yeah, but these guys turn out to be, the one guy's a judge, the other guy's a lawyer, the other guy's like one of the top mining guys here in town. Mm-hmm. And the 4th guy, the guy that did the talking, he's like a CIA brat. He's been living for 25 years in South America. His father was like working on projects down here. He's like a CIA brat. And he's like the local drug dealer. So I met like the judge, this dirty judge. So I'm friends. I met them all at one moment, and like, they don't know anything about me. They think I'm a tour guide in the jungle. And the judge invited me to stay at his house. And like within 5 minutes of being in his house, I realized that the guy's like, he basically takes cocaine at night and he takes pills in the day. Like, he's compromised. Mm-hmm. And he's been stripped of his designation. He's not a judge right now because somebody said, "Look, this guy's crooked. He's making all these bad deals. He's approving these things that shouldn't be approved. He's awarding judgment to these people instead of this person, blah, blah, blah." So he got investigated and he got a 1-year suspension. A local journalist, wrote about him, and he sued the journalist, and he won the case for 25,000 soles, which is about $7,000. So this journalist has to pay this dirty judge money and take all the stuff that he wrote about him down, which is all true. Yeah. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, I'm like, these guys have no idea that I know all this. They have no idea.
Really?
So yeah, it's kind of like sleeping. It's kind of like sleeping with the enemy. I'm a little bit close to the enemy, but
Right.
you know, I mean, that's one of the things. Like you have to be somewhere for a certain length of time before people trust you, and before people see like, oh, this girl's a local girl. Like now, people recognize me in the market. People recognize me at the local restaurants and things like that. They know I'm just not some tourist coming in and leaving. So they'll talk to me, and I had to learn
Don't regret
Spanish
that.
because you know, they speak Spanish. They don't speak English. So, you know, I'm getting the story, but it's not the way I thought I was going to get the story. But yeah, I totally lucked out that one day. I met it was like a trifecta. I met like 4 guys, like bam. What's a trifecta? There's nothing when you get 4 winners, but
Yeah. It's,
it's like a quartet. I got a quartet.
Yeah.
I got like my own quartet. I mean, like it was crazy, and I thought, wow, like this is great. So, I mean, I've got my finger on the pulse of some things here in this little sleepy little jungle town, but you know, I've also got to be careful too.
Yeah. Well, do be careful.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wrap it up
Yeah,
because I think we've been doing this for a while, and I haven't really kept track of the time. But what I want to do is keep in touch so that we can find out what you're up to, especially when you move on to Ecuador and all sorts of places yet unheard of in Alison's life. So is there anything that you want to say just as a kind of a final word and a way of wrapping things up? Or
Well, you know, first of all, just thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share my experience. It's great. And it's also nice to have it. If somebody's heard of something that's going on in Peru, feel free to send me a message saying, can you look into this or can you look into that? Or have you heard about this organization? If somebody knows about somebody who's doing something really good here that I should be sharing, like some great project, I'm always looking for a story to share. So, you know, I look forward to hearing what people have to say as well.
okay, thanks. I lost you for just a second there, but we did get most of that. And what I'm going to do is stay in touch, and we can maybe next time you're in town. You were saying Thursday. Well, sometime we'll get together on air, and I'm hoping that people have some questions to ask you, and that we can kind of talk about some of the other stuff that you've been involved in as well. Okie dokie.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Joni. Take care. It's been lovely talking to you.
You too. Talk to you soon, Alison. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.